Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is raising money to pay for people who are struggling with the herpes stigma to receive therapy and or counseling services. Today's guest is Dave, and Dave, I'm just going to let you get right into it. Let's hear about your experience with your herpes diagnosis from the point of when you first experienced symptoms, and I'll ask you any questions along the way as we get going.
Okay, so I was dating a woman who I met online, and she was very nice. I liked her a lot. I saw some potential, but we really weren't dating that long. And I would say by maybe date number four, she disclosed that she had herpes to me. So she did disclose. It wasn't a secret. I've heard some horror stories about women and men who found out, without being told in advance. That was not my story. And I decided to go ahead with it and see what happened. And, she was trying to kind of make it sound like it wasn't a big deal. And um, then we had sex, and I had bumps on my rear. um, and it hurt like a bitch. For, I would say, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, possibly. It was really bad. And I was seriously regretting my decision. Um, it's just one of those things when you have symptoms like that, you know what it is. Like, you don't need, I mean, in my case, she already told me she was HSV2 positive. So I knew what I was getting into. Um, but to this day, I haven't had a swab done, and it's one of those things I need to do. But it's more at this point just a confirmation than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have had additional breakouts since then. It hasn't been that bad, um, but it's been enough for me to, you know, it's really affected me mentally.
Yeah. How? So you said you haven't gotten a swab done, but how did you treat it when it came up? Did she just give you her medication, or did you just ask for medication, or have you been to see a doctor yet?
No, I'm really into like holistic alternative medicine in general. So for me, I got lemon balm, and I also got aloe vera gel, and I was using both of those the first month. And then I started reading later on about garlic oil, how garlic oil applied topically can be very, very effective for outbreaks. And that was something that I actually just used this week, and it definitely helped a lot.
Okay.
Um, I Yeah.
How long did the outbreak continue to last after you began to use these different methods of healing?
Um, God, it's hard for me to say. I mean, the one that I just had literally this week was, I think it was triggered by having too much peanut sauce.
Oh
I
man,
had,
peanut sauce is
you
the
know,
best though.
yeah, I think I ordered like Thai food,
Oh
and
yeah.
I got a dish with a little too much peanut sauce. That seems to be a really awful trigger, I think, for a lot of people. Um, Nuts and chocolate in general. Chocolate, I can't have too much of that either,
Mm.
because of the, what do you call it?
Is it
Arginine,
Argent?
right?
Yeah, that's it. I always
Yeah,
pronounce it differently than other people. I'll say it like four different ways: arginine, 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 arginine.
something like that,
One
yeah.
of those. We know how to spell it.
So, I've heard something about, consuming more foods with lysine, like dairy and eggs. And so, I had like an omelet or two this week, and it's better generally, but I'm just really down about it. It's really affecting me mentally.
Yeah. Uh, so how did you receive it when she told you that she was HSV2 positive at the point of her disclosure? Did you already know what it was, or did she have to explain it to you? Talk to me about that.
So she explained it to me, and one of the first things I did was I talked to my father, I talked to a friend, and my friend Cindy. I said I met this woman and I like her a lot, and she told me she has herpes, HSV2. And she was like, "Oh, that's no big deal." And what my friend didn't tell me is that she also had herpes.
Oh, no way.
And like I didn't know that. I thought she was completely unbiased. Turns out she was a little more biased. But she still maintains that it's no big deal. And I think most people with herpes feel that way, and that it's, for some people, I think it's worse than others. But generally speaking, you get a few outbreaks a year, and it's not the end of the world. It's like a minor irritant. Um, and then I called my father and I said, "Dad, I met this girl. She's got herpes." And he more or less had the same reaction. He was like, "Oh, people get that all the time. It's no big deal." And so yeah,
Okay.
so it's always the stigma with this. It's not just the stigma; it's the fact that this is a lifelong um, illness, and that is something that's very hard to deal with.
Yeah, the fact that that infection is lifelong is very challenging because it makes people feel like they can't have short-term or casual relationships, and we put this expectation on ourselves to, if we give it to someone or pass it on to them, we are obligated to be with them or support them through whatever their experiences are with it, and kind of hold their hand because we're the person that has been responsible for passing it on or whatever. I'm curious about the relationship. Did the relationship change after after you had your initial outbreak? Like, are you still in contact? Are you dating? What's the situation?
So it changed, but it wasn't for that reason. I mean, I was ready to go through with it. I thought she was very emotionally unavailable, and that was actually a deal breaker for me.
Mm, that's interesting. Can you tell us a little bit what you mean about emotionally unavailable?
I just felt like she had trouble being vulnerable, and I just couldn't connect with her on some level. And I don't know if her herpes had anything to do with that. I know that she was very frustrated, because she told me she had herpes for maybe 20 years, and she got it from some guy that she dated. So 20 years is a long time to be dealing with this. And yeah, so in that conversation, she's like, "So it wasn't the herpes. That's not why that's why not why you don't want to see me anymore." And I said, "No, it's not."
Mm. That's
So
a very mature thing of you to recognize that even outside of the herpes, it's more important that someone's able to be emotionally available and vulnerable for you to be with them. And I'm gonna be honest, man, I'm shocked because this is the first kind of a conversation that I'm having with a heterosexual male who initiated that conversation to say, you're not vulnerable enough for me, because oftentimes I think there's this expectation that men can't be vulnerable.
yes, absolutely. And I guess that's a whole nother can of worms, to be honest. I mean, I was emotionally abused by two narcissist parents, and so I think I tend to be attracted to women who aren't emotionally available.
Oh.
So knowing that's something that's really important to me.
Mm-hmm. Um, Since you shared that, I think this is a good place for me to share. Like, I've been in therapy for almost 6 months now, maybe, yeah, all of the pandemic. I've been in therapy, thank God. And I've come to realize that some of my upbringing and parenting of the parenting that was done to me, if that's how parenting works, um, has instilled a few triggers in me myself. Like I'm in this space of being the emotional support of so many different people who find this resource, who may find me, email me, DM me, and just kind of like bleh, word vomit on me. And I've traced back like my ability to handle this and take this on to childhood. Like I'm terrible about expressing myself emotionally. I'm getting better with practice, and it's like a thing that I actively have to do. And this is something that's supposed to come so naturally to people, but it's 100%, as a result of my mom having used me essentially as an emotional boyfriend, dumping a lot of stuff onto me as a kid, and me being taught that, to receive emotions from someone, that's what it's like to demonstrate love. This is what's safe. But for me to express it and be met with some form of rejection, like that's what I find myself in dating situations. So I can relate to, just attracting what it is that we attract from our instilled trauma in a sense.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because some people go through life and they never realize that that's what happened.
Yeah.
But once you connect the dots, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. how did you how did you discover that about yourself, that this is what you're attracting?
Well, I've always been drawn to dominant women, abusive women, and I sought out dominatrixes. I don't know how you say the plural of that. I sought out women who were abusers, basically. And I was like, why am I so. And it's crazy because female dominance was something that, um, like I got aroused by it. Like that, like how does that happen? Right?
I
And when
mean,
you.
I don't want you to say it like that's a bad thing, because that is something that people are attracted to. Uh, it's character traits. It doesn't mean anything about anyone's sexuality or anything like that. It's just, oh, I know that I like a woman who can be more dominant. I'm attracted to women. I'm attracted to a woman who's more dominant for whatever the reason may be, and it doesn't even have to be a reason, you know. So yeah, dude, don't talk about it like it's something to be ashamed of. Like shit, dominatrixes are hot.
I know that's what I think too, but there's this whole thing that I haven't gotten into all the backstory. So I've got a narcissist father and a narcissist mother. My mother was always, you know, manipulating, guilt tripping. My father gaslighting. And I was always taking like a submissive role, like almost like they were talking down to me pretty much my whole life, as if I was less than. And so yeah, so that it's all just too much.
Yeah,
Like I've just been this last year or two has been really challenging, and I think for a lot of people, in the pandemic, it for me was just is just one more thing. But so there's the herpes. I saw two therapists for the emotional abuse, and I went no contact with both parents about a year ago. I don't talk with either parent any longer,
hmm
and so yeah, it's been a tough year.
yeah. And how are you dealing with it? How are you? Do you have any support? Are you seeing a therapist at all, or friend groups, or online communities? How are you able to take care of yourself?
I'm very active on Reddit. I'm active in this group called Raised by Narcissists. There's another group called Estranged Adult Children. There's another group called CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder,
Mm,
which is essentially what happens to children of narcissists is they have PTSD, except it's a variant. It's called complex PTSD.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, uh, we're about 15 minutes in. Um, I know that we were on a time constriction, so I want to get. I love this conversation because it's getting into mental health, and I think that sexual health and mental health are super interconnected. But I want to be mindful of the time that we do have together, and get back to how do you feel your HSV diagnosis has impacted your mental health, or vice versa?
It's been fairly traumatic. I think more traumatic than I thought it was going to be, to be honest. Just in the respect, I have these thoughts that go through my head, kind of like thinking about pre HSV and post, and how beforehand, I can ask, a woman to come over and watch a movie, and now it's kind of like this wrench has been thrown into that. Like I can't just hook up anymore. Now it's complicated. Um, Now, you know, now it's like kind of what the woman who I got it from did with me. Like I went on maybe 3 or 4 dates with her, and I was like, why won't she let me touch her? Like, why is she being so physically standoffish? And that was the reason why. And
Mm,
so now I kind of feel like I've got to be like that because,
yeah.
um, herpes is, it's not like other STDs. You can, I was wearing a condom when I got it.
Yeah.
It's skin on skin contact, so it's really it's very contagious. It's really easy to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I was gonna ask a question, but I didn't want to cut you off. Was there more that you were about to say?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say that I think within the HSV positive community, a lot of people in general seem to think that you can wear a condom and everything's gonna be okay, but that is not true.
Yeah. And people, we're not informed that this is a skin to skin contact virus. We're informed that it's an STD. You get it from sex. And what do they say about sex? Wear condoms so you don't get STDs. So it's just like a general jumbling of shit information, man. And it's not accurate, it's not consistent, and it's just not honest information about it. And I'm a firm believer that we, as the people who are HSV positive, bringing all of our different experiences to the table, we have collectively a significant amount of more insight than can be told to us by medical providers who are given whatever few hours of sex education it is that they're being given. And so I think that it's important for, like your story being told here to be told so that we can do things like advocate for vaccines, advocate for better medication, advocate for better education more than anything. Did I say advocate for better education, medication? They sounded alike, so I don't know, but I meant both medication and education so that
Both.
people understand, just how much of this is a complex virus, like the way that this thing works. And for many of us, we'll never see symptoms. For many of us, we'll have our first outbreak. That'll be it. And for some of us, this is something that we're going to struggle with on a regular basis. And so it's important that, for those of us like myself who have the privilege of being able to speak to this openly and push for something to be done, like I'm doing what I can to support people in navigating the stigma, which I see has such a major impact on people's mental health. And I think that the more that we're able to get in a better place mentally, collectively, in relation to how we view our sexuality and sexual health, um, the more likely we are to get better treatment for the physical aspects of it.
I agree, absolutely. It's yeah, it's crazy because it's on the surface it seems like it's really not a big deal, and you could kind of say it's not, but the mental aspect is rough.
hmm Especially compounded to the other things that you got going on. Having two narcissistic parents, and then you also mentioned in our conversation prostatitis. That's something that you struggle with.
Yeah.
Now, how long has this been going on? Because I can speak to my own experience with prostatitis, and that was not pleasant.
12 years for me.
So it's chronic, or is it chronic or acute? Are those the two?
Yeah, it's chronic.
Okay. For 12 years? Wow. Like, did it start with any particular condition? Because for me, the reason I got prostatitis was as a result of chlamydia.
Yeah, and that's very common. Um, I know that a percentage of men that get it engage in some sort of anal play, anal sex. And this actually goes back to, my dominatrix fetish. I had a session or two, with where a strap on was used on me, and I think that's how I got it.
You think that's how you got the prostatitis?
Yeah.
So that's interesting because if our prostate is in our buttholes, right? So as I've read or seen things about sexual health in relation to the prostate, like that is something, ejaculation and prostate stimulation are supposed to be good for the prostate in terms of reducing inflammation, or I'm sorry, not reducing, but preventing inflammation. I would think is that not the case?
I mean, anytime you stick something up there that doesn't belong, it's like that channel is used to defecate, right? You're not supposed to stick things in there. I mean, that's what I've concluded.
Yeah.
um, and maybe gay men might have an issue with me saying that, but this is my perspective. I'm heterosexual, but anal sex. I know a lot of heterosexual couples engage in anal sex, and yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty risky.
hmm So is this from like maybe whatever was used not being sterilized causing the inflammation, or could it have been something else? Like just this thing was damaging to the area or what?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I still don't know until this day. I mean, there there were definitely several things that could have caused this.
hmm
That seems like it was the most likely scenario.
Okay.
But anyway, so between the prostatitis and the herpes, I'm just like, I don't even want to date. It's just this shitty feeling. Like you almost feel like who would want to date me?
Ooh.
With this kind of baggage.
Well, wait. So the prostatitis isn't an STI. So for me, in my experience, mine was caused by an STI, and in your case, it wasn't caused by an STI. So what? Why the seemingly double stigma here for you?
Well, I mean, it causes erectile dysfunction problems in some men. It can cause premature ejaculation issues in some men. Um, it can cause sex to be painful.
Mm.
Kind of like endometriosis with women,
Oh
or
wow.
I guess vaginitis. There are different health issues that women have that where sex is made painful. Um, and for men, prostatitis. I mean, just when when you urinate, it can burn like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that?
Yeah. So when I I found out I had prostatitis before I found out I had chlamydia. The first symptom, when I urinated, it was kind of like, what the fuck was that? And it was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm good. And for a few days, it didn't burn. I just noticed that I wasn't peeing a lot like I normally was. And so it would come out slowly, and I'd be in there for a while and then just be like, huh, this is weird. But I was also sweating. I was playing flag football. I was doing all this stuff, basketball. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just dehydrated. The day that I decided to go in and get checked for the slow streams of pee was the same day that my butt started hurting. And I was like, hold on, hey, let me mention that too, that my butt's hurting. And this was the very first symptom of prostatitis. And when they sent me on my way, they were just like, your prostate's inflamed. We think it's prostatitis. Here you go. So they give me the medication. They prescribed me the medication for prostatitis and send me on my way. And then they called me a few days later after my STI results came back in and told me that I was positive for chlamydia. And I became a fucking prostatitis expert after that, because I was like, wait a minute, how did this happen? And so looking in and seeing what caused it and all of the signs and symptoms and everything like that, I know that for me, like, I really struggled with that, because it's like, I talk about STDs. I interview people like, how could this have happened to me? Because I did everything that I tell other people to do, and it still happened. So, I mean, that tells me, one, just how unavoidable STIs can be. But the biggest element to me has just really been get tested, communicate. Like, these are the only two things that we can do. And even sometimes that's not enough for us.
It's really interesting because the more I learn about the microbiome and gut health, the more I feel like that is the root cause of all of this stuff.
Tell me more.
Prostatitis, STDs, like, the conclusion that I'm coming to after researching this a lot is that when you have an imbalance in your gut, let's say you have, too much bad bacteria relative to the good bacteria in your gut, it makes your gut an inhospitable environment, and you start being, it becomes easier for you to get these UTIs, for example, herpes, for example. And I've heard of cases where you have a herpes positive guy or woman, and they have a partner who is not herpes positive, and they don't get it, even though it's a highly contagious virus. So how does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it all goes back to the immune system.
Yeah, I can speak to that, because many of my partners since my herpes diagnosis have not gotten herpes from me, condom, no condom. Like, no one's, I've asked, and everyone's been like, nope, don't have it. Or one person, they actually, this was someone I was very sexually active with. She reached out to me way later and was like, yeah, so I ended up getting herpes, not from you. I know who I got it from. And she told me the story, and I was just like, wow. And I think that for me, like, I talk about this very rarely, but I do have a strong belief in just how well we take care of ourselves, practicing basic hygiene, and then keeping your immune system up and being able to communicate with people about it. Like, hey, I have herpes, and there is a possibility. There's always going to be a possibility that I can pass it on to you. And then just taking the precautions that we can take, but it's still all a gamble. Like, how could I have had sex with so many women and not pass it on to them? But then the first time you have sex with a woman who has it and you use a condom, you get it. outside of the only thing I could think of is perhaps, if she were shedding and maybe felt like an outbreak was coming or just getting over an outbreak, the only thing that could have been different would be for her to have communicated, hey, I don't think we should have sex right now. But even that might not be enough because, again, this is a highly contagious virus.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, she told me she was on the tail end of her period, and apparently that makes it easier to transmit. And I was kicking myself because I felt like, I mean, I just feel like if I had herpes for 20 years, that would be something that I would expect myself to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little upset that I guess she just didn't know. I mean, I guess I can't be upset about that. If you don't know, you don't know.
Right,
Right?
right.
Um, but yeah, that's another thing that needs to be publicized a little better.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
people, men and women alike, need to understand that.
Mm.
Um, it's just another nuance in this whole thing. But, going back to the immune system, I mean, God, it's like the Western diet is generally not a good diet relative to other countries.
Well, think about it. Like we sell health, right? So, well, who better to sell health to than sick people?
Right. And I was reading, there's a book, it's called Cultured, and it's all about, the whole book is about probiotics and, cultured fermented foods. And there's this one chapter that really hit me where they compared the diets of children in Burkina Faso in Africa with children in Italy. The Italian children were eating a standard like Western diet, and the children in Burkina Faso were eating very high fiber foods and like more basic foods, right? Not like Doritos and cupcakes, like real food.
I feel attacked.
And their gut health was like 1,000 times better than the Italian children. And I was like, wow. They eat things like millet and and lots of vegetables and a wide variety of vegetables. Bless you.
Thank you.
Um, that's a key to gut health is the diversity in what you eat. You don't just eat like apples. You eat apples and oranges and papayas and mangoes and pineapples and blueberries, right?
Mm-hmm.
They always tell you to eat the rainbow, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that. So anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but ultimately I think it comes back, like I had a test done called a GI map, and what I learned from that is that my gut health is really bad, and so I'm probably predisposed to getting all sorts of different things like herpes or prostatitis. So anyway, so right now I'm just focusing on consuming more fermented foods, kefir, yogurt, making them myself, consuming more prebiotic foods, and also more fiber,
Mm-hmm.
and just fixing that. And who knows, maybe it'll make it. I don't know if herpes will magically go away.
Yeah. I mean, shit. If we can figure out a way to just get the outbreaks gone, man, and significantly, reduce the possibility of passing it on just through our diet, our nutrition, and taking care of our gut health, like all of this stuff is worth exploring for real. Especially if we can give our body the tools that it needs in order to function at an optimal level and fight off viruses, bacteria, and keep that kind of stuff at bay. Because I mean, our bodies are naturally attracting viruses, bacteria. Like we make great hosts, you know. So
Oh yeah.
if our bodies are able to fight that stuff off, keep it at bay, then there's no issue, and all we got to do is just focus on nutrition. What?
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times when I speak with people, they're like, "What kind of snake oil is this?" And I'm like, and I'm talking about herbs like uva ursi or cleavers or, just things you don't hear about because it's not common knowledge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the 1600s or 1700s, that's what they used. They used herbs to get well. They didn't go to a medical doctor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But speaking about herbs, so I wanted to bring this up because this is not common knowledge. There's a woman, her name is Jane Barlow. She owns a company called Barlow Herbs, Barlow. It's in the Pacific Northwest, and they harvest a product called Lomatium. It's an herb. It's called Lomatium dissectum, and it's spelled Lomatium. And so Lomatium is highly, highly antiviral. And so Jane Barlow I was listening to a podcast with her, and she was saying that her husband has had herpes for about 20 years, and he took Lomatium every single day for about a year and a half, and she says that he got rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when she says got rid of it, are we saying gotten rid of the symptoms, gotten rid of the ability to pass it on to her, or gotten rid of like he has no antibodies for herpes showing up in a blood test anymore?
Yeah, what you just said. Like, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, gone. And, in the conventional medical world, they say that you've got herpes for life. I'm probably in the minority here, but I'm not sure I buy that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, most medical doctors don't know about Lomatium dissectum. They don't know about some of these herbs that are just not on their radar. But Lomatium is very powerful. It's also used for HPV. It's different viruses. And so I don't know. I'm gonna give it a try and see what happens.
Yeah, keep me posted, man. I'm always interested because I hear people say, "Did you hear about so and so using these herbs to cure herpes?" And I'm always reluctant to, like, I'm hesitant to take that in because it's like, this is playing a game of telephone. You heard from so and so that this does this thing. Like, have you done it? So, like, let me talk to that person. I want to see these blood test results and know if that's what's happening. But like, the more deep I get into this space, the more people come up with like things that I hadn't heard from the medical community before, or I haven't heard from people who are working to treat and minimize the outbreaks. Like, I hear about different things often and all the time. So if this is something that can help people, like, yeah, let me know how this is going for you so that I can speak to your experience as well.
And I have it here. I take it actually.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is you're never going to hear an herbal company like Barlow Herbal say that this product cures herpes, because they can't do that. If they make a claim like that, they'll be shut down by the Food and Drug Administration.
Oh yeah.
And so they can't say that. They've got to kind of dance around the subject.
Yeah. Well, yeah, keep me posted. We are coming up on our time together. We're at 39 minutes. So I just had a couple of more questions for you, and then we can close this thing out, my man.
Sure.
So the first one is, how long have you been positive? I don't think I ever asked you that.
Maybe 9 months to a year now.
Okay. And then what was some of the earliest support that you found? Like, or did you seek out support at all after your diagnosis?
I honestly didn't really seek out support, although I just moved to a new city, to New York, and it's actually top of mind now. So I'm planning to seek it out. Um, I think just online, and on Reddit there's a herpes support group. I'm really a big Reddit user.
Yeah.
Facebook, I was in a Facebook herpes support group, and some of these support groups are really, they don't like alternative viewpoints.
Yeah. I think the reason for that is that people feel like it gives false hope. Um, and people are very vulnerable after their diagnosis and willing to throw their life savings at anything that's just going to make this go away. So I understand the need for it. I want the information. If the information is out there and it's honest, I want it. Like I don't care about the controversy behind it. Like I want people's experiences. I want their real experiences, and I want them to give them to me because it could help someone or it could not help someone, but having the information that's available and giving it to people so that they can make the decisions, like that's what I'm here for. Like something positive for positive people as a media outlet in itself. I didn't lose you, did I? Uh-oh, I think I lost him. Damn. All right.
I think that.
My connection is unstable. All right. I just heard a little bit of your voice. If you can pick up where with what you were just saying.
Yeah, I was just saying, you can do whatever you want with the information. No one's putting a gun to your head saying you need to take this. I'm of the opinion that it's better to have knowledge and make your own decisions.
Same.
If you want to take the drug, I don't even know how to you pronounce it, acyclovir or something.
Yeah, acyclovir.
Yeah, like if you want to go that route, fine, do that. And a lot of people, like it and they seem to have success with it in terms of managing outbreaks. Me on the other hand, I like going the herbal route, and I like looking for things. I was just reading about these two different kinds of seaweed that are as powerful, if not more powerful, than that drug that I just mentioned.
Hmm.
One of them is a brown seaweed. It's in the kelp family. Um, and forgive me, I don't. It's in my iPhone, which is like across the way here.
Oh, that's all right.
If you want, I can get it and
Yeah,
tell you. But
we got Google.
yeah, for HSV, there's this one. I think it's in the Wakame family, Wakame. Um, anyway, but they're still studying it. It just seems pretty interesting that it has strong antiviral activity against HSV1 and the other one HSV2.
Hmm. And you know what? I recently read the back of a Lysol can and it said it kills HSV1 and HSV2. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but
Really?
yeah, like if you read the back of the Lysol, it says kills coronavirus, like all of these different viruses, and you're like, how? Like how? um, and I actually talked to someone who sprayed Lysol on their genitals before, and I was like, bro, you can't do that. Like I hope you didn't
Oh
immediately have sex afterwards. Like don't do that to anybody.
my God.
um,
Yeah,
but
that sounds dangerous.
it is. So we're at 44 minutes. Can I get you talking about one more thing for me, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
So we met through the herpes subreddit. I asked a question about men's disclosing or being open to doing something like this, is having an anonymous interview to share their experience in comparison to women, because when we look online and we see, if you Google people with herpes, you're going to see probably 96 white women, me, and then 3 white dudes. So the thing that I want to ask you is like, what did it take for you to step outside of the comfort of the Reddit group and the support groups that you've been involved with in order to do this interview and share your story and share your experience?
I mean, I think like talking about, things that are on your mind is very therapeutic in general. So I think that's part of it. And then also people need to feel supported. It's like it's a very lonely feeling when you get this and you're like, oh my God, you just feel it's good to hear from other people that come forward and say, well, I've got it too. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
And there was this woman who did a TED Talk who from what I recall, she opened it with, I have herpes.
Ella Dawson, Bros and Pros on Instagram.
Right, that's her name. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. Here I am, like, anonymous, and this woman, like, goes up on a stage and is like, hey, everybody, I've got herpes.
Now, hey, everybody ain't got the privilege to do that. So if someone's listening and they're getting excited and inspired to do that, like, make sure you think this through, because it's not everything that it's cracked up to be. And that is out there. That is on the internet.
Yeah, and you gotta give her props. I mean, that's respect,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, by comparison, what I'm doing here is nothing compared to that. But, if I can help one person, great, wonderful.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
And I want to thank you for inviting me and allowing me to share, my story. You're really doing a great service, so thank you.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for answering the call. I feel like my post was very interpreted a number of different ways, and so like I got really frustrated when I posted to Reddit about like men opening up more in like this kind of a way, even just to get these experiences out there, because it's like disproportionately women's experiences, and their experiences essentially are saying, they get this from men, but we don't hear the men's side of it, right? So I appreciate you hearing me. I appreciate you going through that post and reading it and being a part of this, man. It really does mean a lot to me, and I get excited whenever I get an opportunity to bring the male perspective on here, and I appreciate you as well for being as vulnerable as you have been, going through talking about your abuse and talking about some of your sexual experiences and dealing with the prostatitis as well, and sharing the herbs with us. And please keep in touch with me personally, and then let me know how the herbs are going so that I can continue to share that kind of information on here.
That sounds great. Yeah, thanks so much.
All right. I'll go ahead and let you go. I'll close out with this here, and then we'll be in touch via WhatsApp, and I'll text you and let you know when this will be released or when you can listen to it and approve it.
Sounds great.
All right. Take care, my man. Thank you.
All right, you too. Take care.
All right. Bye. All right. So we're wrapping up that interview here with Dave. I met Dave on Reddit. It was really awesome getting to talk to him and hearing about his experience and just getting the male perspective. Like, we just don't get that a lot. I had prostatitis, as you heard. We talked about that on the podcast on different episodes. And to hear from him about how he dealt with his and how his is chronic and mine was as a result of an STI, and here just you can hear kind of the shame around it and the disappointment in his voice of now, also having the effects that come with prostatitis, even though it's not an STI, like the erectile dysfunction and the painful urination. Like, these were all things that we as people, as men, I want to take this opportunity to call more men to the stage and be able to share more of these stories. So I mentioned, this is a decent segue into getting tested. One of our podcast sponsors is Let's Get Checked. And the URL is www.trylgc.com/SPFPP. And you can get 30% off your first at-home STI testing kit. And there's plenty of options on there if you want to get tested for just HIV, chlamydia, syphilis, gonorrhea, and trick. Then that's an option. If you want to get the complete 10, which includes testing for herpes shedding, that's on the high end, right? I think when I looked at it last, it was $349. So you can still get 30% off if you visit www.trylgc.com/SPFPP. And when it asks for a promo code, enter SPFPP at checkout. Had I been, using this routinely with my STI testing, perhaps I would have been able to catch my chlamydia a little bit sooner. But man, it's so tricky keeping track of, or knowing when you got an STI, how you got it, who gave it to you, whatever. But the only thing that we can do is be on top of our testing. So for me, I've made it a routine to get tested every 3 months, and that 3 months is actually coming up. So by the time this episode is out, I will have already gotten checked again. So it's important that we do that. And we're in a pandemic. COVID makes a lot of things a little bit more complicated, as even as we're recording this, I have a little bit of a cough. I haven't been going into work over the last 8 days. So it's really nice to be able to get this test done at home. I can get it mailed to me. I prick my finger for a few of the blood tests. I pee in this. They got this really innovative box that you use to collect the urine sample. It's really cool. I can't show you a video of me using that, but if you visit www.trylgc.com/SPFPP and order your own test kit, then save 30%, of course, when you enter SPFPP at checkout. Then you'll know what I'm talking about. I want to also close this out introducing the Something Positive for Positive People podcast Facebook group. So this group is for podcast listeners. Doesn't matter if you have herpes or don't have herpes. If you listen to Something Positive for Positive People, then this community is for you. I've been super accessible to everybody, and I have Patreon subscribers who aren't really getting anything from me. And I just feel like the content that I provide isn't something that people should have to pay for. Like, I'm just having conversations with people that I would have had otherwise, whether I was getting paid for it or not. So with that said, if you do want to leave a donation to Something Positive for Positive People, know that we are continuing to raise money to be able to pay for people's therapy who are struggling with STI stigma, with herpes stigma in particular. But the more money we get, the more we can expand. The faster we can expand, the more therapists we can get involved, and the sooner I can start paying myself for doing all of this. Like, I'll be good with just being able to pay myself a minimum wage salary for the year. I already got a job. I'm in yoga teacher training, so that'll be another income stream. But my board of directors wants to see me get paid, which is awesome. But I'm willing to hold out as long as I need to in order to continue to provide this service. Like, I'm committed. All right. So that Facebook group, again, is just Something Positive for Positive People podcast. If you I'm not promoting this on any social media. I'm not promoting it in any other way other than via the podcast. So if you hear this ad and you're interested in joining a community of people who listen to this podcast and just finding community and sharing funny memes, sex memes, being involved in a sex positive, more queer friendly, woke community of people that perhaps can become your friend group or dating pool or whatever. That's something. That's what I strive for this to be. I just want this to be a community that is run by the people. As long as you're not an a-hole or a jerk, you can be a part of this. So I'm encouraging people to check it out, and I'll do my best to be active there. Like, I'm going to be active in there. And hopefully I can just get people to bridge that gap between those who have herpes and those who don't have herpes, so that people can begin to see themselves interacting with people, period, rather than exclusively people who are living with herpes. All right. Please rate, review, subscribe to this podcast, leave a donation, visit www.spfpp.org in order to do so. Till next time, stay sex positive.